Mm. Okay. Ali, I would love to welcome you to introduce this seed swap, which is about death and imagination and has arisen out of the huddle that you hosted, and is going to be led by some of your um, huddle colleagues. So, yeah, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Uh, yeah, absolutely loving these joys. This is the way to begin. This is the way to begin every Zoom, especially one about death. Thank you all so much for coming. We did not expect to have um, 40 odd people on this call. It's a self-selecting crowd. So excited that the right people are here in the room. Yeah, welcome. I'm Ali. So I'm the host of this collective imagination practice Huddle. And we are delighted to be taking over this seed swap. We're going to share a couple of practices that emerged over our 3 month learning journey in autumn of last year. So, as Hannah said, the huddles, you're probably broadly familiar with that format. They're a slightly longer form and a more sustained kind of peer learning format that allow for cohorts of up to 12 to go deeper on a topic in collective imagination. And our particular focus has been death, loss, and endings. Um, we won't say too much more actually than that at this stage. I think it's probably one of those things where it's a lot more fun to experience some of the practices that we've been developing than to hear too much from us about why we think this is important. So over the next 90 minutes, we're going to share a couple of practices that kind of came up over the course of the 3 months we had together. They're both practices that really stopped us in our tracks, I think, while we were kind of journeying together, and have really been ones that have enriched our understanding of why this topic is so necessary. So that's particularly why we're excited to bring them to you today. The first is a kind of meditation visualization from the wonderful Devon, who will lead us in that. And the second will be a slightly more playful ritual crafting practice with Hilary. In the last half an hour, I know it might be that some of you want to or need to leave on the hour, so we'll sort of try and contain as much as possible to that. And in the last half an hour, we'll have a slightly more open session led by the lovely Stella, which allows for some sense making. And I think, just as a sort of disclaimer, spoiler alert now, this is a world we're really curious about building a sort of sustained community of practice around. So we are curious also in that half an hour to hear from you. You know, what interests you about this? What intrigues you? What repels you? What might you kind of want to bring to this in a more ongoing way? So that will be a little bit more open. We've also been documenting what we've been up to on the Collective Imagination Practice Community Medium blog. So we'll share some of those links so you can catch up on that as well. But this is really much more hands-on. So I think without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Devon, for our first share.
Hiya. I'm so excited to be part of this and to share this practice with you. Our journey together was incredibly expansive. And we started the journey by coming into relationship with death. I think we all have a lot of preconceived notions, fears, all of the things that we carry with death. And so it was an opportunity to come into a different kind of relationship. One of the first practices we did was to just notice death around you in your everyday life, like noticing the dead food that you're putting into your body, noticing the end and beginning of every breath as a death, noticing the flowers dying. And it's wild how much your world changes when you notice that there's death in almost every single moment. But one of the people in our huddle shared a photo of an ash tree in his neighborhood that was dying because there are diseases that are spreading through ash forests around the world. And I remembered going to an ash forest in the mountains in Colorado, and it was fall. And so it was these beautiful colors. And then there were these massive patches of gray because these forests were just dying so rapidly. And so today we are going to go on a journey to meet death in an ash forest. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes if that feels good to you. If not, soft gaze, not focusing on anything, just kind of keeping your eyes around your knees. Settling into your seat. Noticing your ribs as they expand and contract with each breath. And slowly deepening your breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. With every inhale, noticing where you're holding tension in the body. And as you exhale, just let your body melt into the seat that's holding you. Noticing how it's coming up to meet you. And in front of you, you're going to see a door. And I invite you to just get curious about this door, noticing the color and the texture, maybe even walking around it. There's nothing on the other side, but it's just there. And when you're feeling ready, you're going to open this door and find yourself in an ash forest. And take it in. Notice the height of the trees, the leaves on the forest floor. Maybe you even hear little animals scurrying around. You'll see a path somewhere in front of you. Take your time, enjoying the forest as you walk down this path. Noticing the strong, vibrant trees. And also noticing the ones that are slowly dying. The trees with very few leaves left. And as you tune into these trees, you notice something moving between them. It's not threatening in any way, it's just there. It's almost as if they're dancing with them. You continue to watch this thing moving, caressing the trees. The more you watch, the more it slows down. Because your attention has caught its attention. And it's not stopping what it's doing, but it's also aware that you're there. And its attention doesn't feel threatening. It's just curious. Wasn't expecting to see you here. Continues watching you as you walk along the path. And eventually it slows and comes closer. And you realize it's the being of death that was here singing to the dying trees as a way to hospice it to the next life. Notice what this being of death looks like for you. Is it tall or small? Is it hooded or wearing a gown? Just take a few breaths. Curious, with a curiosity. Noticing that it's just as curious about you. Death has a message for you. It's very rare that death comes across a being it's not there to take to the other side. And so death wants to share its truth with you. If you are open to hearing this truth, death will continue walking down the path with you. And in return for hearing its message, you may ask it one question. If this is something you are a yes to, continue walking down the path together. And if you are a no, say thank you and continue to walk down the path alone, offering no judgment, just compassion and gratitude for your no. Either way, walk down the path and listen. Listen to death and the message it has to offer you, or listen to the forest and the rustling of leaves and the scampering of animals. Take your time here, always being with your breath. If you have not already switched, you may begin to ask your question with death if you chose to walk with him or her or them. As you walk on the path, it starts to bend. And when you turn the corner, you see a door. It is time for you to return home. How would you like to spend these last few moments with death? How would you like to say goodbye? It's time you've reached the door. Completing your time together in whatever way feels good. And when you are ready, opening the door and walking through. Taking a few last deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Bring your shoulders up to your ears on the inhale. And on the exhale, dropping them down and wide. Doing that one more time. And slowly moving your fingers and toes. Opening your eyes and looking around your room, not focusing on anything, but noticing the colors and the patterns and the shapes. Feeling into your feet and coming back to us. Welcome back. Thank you for taking the time to go on this journey. I'm going to invite y'all, if you have paper and pencil, or if you're on your computer, wherever you would like to do it, to just take 5 minutes and journal about your experience. What did death have to tell you? What answers did you get or not get? And what answer is there in that? Remembering the colors and the textures of your forest. Now I'm going to pass it on to Hillary for the next section. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Devin. That was wonderful. I was transported back to the time we did that in the huddle, and I'm holding back the urge to share what happened to me, but I'm holding that. So thank you for that. We're going to move into a slightly different headspace now, and you might want, when I've explained what we're going to do, you might want to get up and move around and kind of shift yourself into a different headspace, but taking with you very much what has just come to you in that guided meditation. So we're going to move to another exercise that we did during the huddle, which was an exercise in commemorating an object at the end of its life with ritual. And the framing that we were looking at, well, it was two members of our huddle, Caroline and Natalia, who created this exercise, but unfortunately can't be here today. And the framing that they were looking at was how we make rituals. What are they to us? What do we need from them? Mixing sadness and humour, lightness. So sort of how those two juxtapose together, and the kind of the role and the importance of objects in ritual. So your first instruction, we're going to start off with 10 minutes on your own, and you will go off in a scavenger hunt around your home, your office, wherever you are, and find an object that's coming to the end of its life, to the end of its tether, or to the end of its use. Don't overthink it. You may immediately fix on something that has quite a deep meaning for you, or it may just be something that at first glance feels quite light to you. It doesn't matter. Just don't overthink it. Just pick an object that's coming to the end of its life or its use. And in the 10 minutes, we'd like you to create a 3-minute ritual that you will then share in a breakout room with 1 or 2 other people. You can be playful with the ritual. Don't take it too seriously. Go wherever you want to go with it. It could include whatever you want, some words, some music, a costume. It could include anything you want. And you've got 3 minutes for that ritual. Again, like the object, don't overthink it, because it's the process of trying this and sharing it and reflecting. That's the important thing. When you come, don't worry about refining it and having it all polished. And if you want your ritual to involve the other person or people in the room, you can engage them in the ritual also. So we're going to send you off for 10 minutes to do finding your object, to do your thinking. And so we will come back. It's 3:36 now. Say 3:47 by the time we've gone into the rooms. So if you're back by 3:47, and then we will put you into small rooms with 1 or 2 other people, and you'll have an opportunity to share your ritual. So I'll give you some further instructions at that point. But you've got 10 minutes on your own now to find an object and create a 3-minute ritual for its closure, for its ending. Is everybody okay with that?
I think that's really clear, Hilary. I just noticed a few people have just come in. So if you wouldn't mind just really quickly putting it in the chat so they can catch up, that'd be great. And I will pause the video now for 10 minutes so that, because we're off to do our thing.
Okay, so the instructions for the breakout room are really straightforward. I'm just going to drop them into the chat. You'll be in a room with 1 or maybe 2 people. And if you end up in a room on your own, just wait and we'll move you into a room with somebody else. Have a brief introduction. Don't take the time up with long professional analysis. Just name and perhaps where you are or something to share. And then take it in turns to share your ritual. We'll pop some timings in the chat just to keep you on time, but then take some time when you've both shared, take some time to reflect together. What did you learn in that process? And the reflection together is as important as sharing the ritual. Carry out the ritual. So you either carry it out on your own or together, or however you've designed it. and don't get too much performance anxiety. This is just a sharing. I noticed I took the word perform out of the notes. It's a sharing rather than a performance. I know that freaks some people out. Okay, we're going to bring you back in about 15 minutes. I'm saying about, but we'll drop notes into the messenger to let you know how much time you've got. So Hannah, if you're okay to put everybody into rooms, and then we'll look after those rooms, and you can go into one yourself. See you all shortly. Got two people. I'm just going to move. I'm just going to move Eva to Anna's room. Fine. And I think we've got two people in all of the rooms. Oh, Wanda needs to be moved. Should I move Wanda as well?
Yeah, move
Anna,
Wanda.
do you want to join a room?
I will. Yeah, I will happily. I could join Wanda.
Yes, that's
Let me
great.
join Wanda.
Brilliant.
Okay, and I'm gonna turn the I'm just gonna pause the recording now.
I'm going to hand over to Stella. But before I do, if you're willing to, do share what object you said goodbye to in the chat. I think it would be people be really interested to know what you shared. So do share that in the chat if you're comfortable. If not, don't worry. And I hope you found that exercise as stimulating and interesting as we did when we did it back in our huddle. And I'm now going to hand over to Stella. Over to you, Stella.
Thank you. Yeah, when we did this ritual exercise together, Ali and I had a really ridiculous time saying goodbye to a credit card and a handwritten to-do list. And it was particularly hilarious because I was in a cafe. So I did this whole ritual in a cafe, and it ended with a sort of flourish, putting it in the recycling bin. But I hope you all, thank you for playing along. So in this last 20 minutes or so, I'm just, yes, let's see. I need to just share my screen, which I think is gonna throw Devin off, but that's okay. So some of you will know, and maybe some of you don't know, but the reason we're here is because this group of people spent 3 months together last year exploring death and endings and loss together. And we just wanted to take a moment to show everyone's faces. Not everyone can be here today, but it was a rich and wild journey, I think it's fair to say. And as a small technical point, Hannah, I hope you can help us with some breakout rooms. And I'm just going to give you the instructions now, and then I'll do a bit more talking, and that'll give you a second to figure them out. So if we could have 5 rooms, I think that'll work with numbers. With one with Devon, one with Hilary, one with Ali, one with myself, and then also one with Justin, who I hope is still here and was with us on the journey too. So whatever numbers that makes up in the end. And we're going to be in those breakout rooms for, let's go for 12 minutes. I think that'll be a good amount of time. So whilst Hannah's doing tech back of house, we thought we would share with you a few observations that came out at the end of our journey together, and then just invite you into a conversation with a smaller group about what's resonating for you today after Devon's beautiful meditative journey with us, and a slightly creative, possibly wacky, maybe momentary, uncomfortable moment of sharing your rituals. So I think we realized that this was never a journey that would only last 3 months, and that death and endings are a thread in all of our work. We're a really multidisciplinary group from all sorts of different backgrounds, different places around the world. different entry points, I guess, to joining the journey. Some people who had very personal experiences of loss, death, endings, and other people who were looking at that from a more professional or societal level, and just realizing how alive death and endings are in our daily lives, and also how scared we can be of them and unacknowledging of them. We really felt we were missing spaces that had both the appetite and some level of literacy to explore death and loss and endings, and really all felt the privilege of being in a space where those topics could be part of our conversation. And so part of what we're here to invite you all into, if you're interested, is a continuation of that conversation with us. We don't as yet know what that looks like, but we're curious to know who's interested to continue the journey with us. We really valued, as I said, these different lenses on death, right? The literal, the individual, the collective, and really, I think, started the journey wondering maybe what those different lenses or experiences could teach each other, and whether the people in the group who'd come from a very personal place might have something different to share than those who are coming from a more collective or professional place, and found that really not to be true. And whether you're talking about the loss of a parent or a friend, or the loss of a ecosystem, or the loss of a future you thought you might have that you might not have now, all of those things can come together in one conversation. And finally, we're a self-selecting group. I think Ali can speak to this better than anyone, but you put out a journey which is about death, and you wonder who might come to the door and what those people might be working with or exploring, or how they might be. And we really recognize that, of course, the people who step forward for this work, there's a self-knowing that comes from that. There's a knowing that you're ready to have a conversation about death, about endings, about loss. And there are people who are not ready for societal reasons or personal reasons to be in that conversation. But when people are, it can be a very sensitive and skilled and interesting conversation. And so we want to organize ourselves in a way that works for us as a group, and would be interested to invite those of you who'd like to be in that conversation with us into that. So with that, we'd love to just give you a chance to connect in a slightly bigger group. Hopefully that was enough time for Hannah to do the back of house logistics. Getting a thumbs up, great. So we're just going to have 12 minutes or so to have a quick conversation about maybe what you've noticed today, about your relationship to death, loss, or endings. And then what do you already know that you might be able to bring to these conversations? Are you working on something? Have you read something? I was pulling out this book, which I keep telling everyone about, with the end in mind. I'm sure lots of people have read it on this call, but I'm telling everyone who'll listen that they should read it. I feel like I learned more about the process of the transition of death of people's lives reading this book than I have in the 35 years or however long I've been on the planet. So what have you noticed today, and what do you already know that you could bring to these conversations? And so I'll put it in the chat about the book. I can do that. Thank you, Louise. Let's go into breakout rooms if we're ready, Hannah, and we'll come back in 12 minutes just to wrap up.
Lovely. So I've created the breakout rooms, but all of you are, I think, admins, so you can go into the room that you want to, if you see what I mean.
Beautiful. Great. I'll put the questions
Maybe
in the
not
chat.
Justin. Justin might be already put in with one.
Okay. Don't go in the room that Justin's already in.
Exactly. Well said. And I'll stay in the main room.
Okay. I was mid-sentence. It was poor breakout room management on my part. Thank you all. We have just 5 minutes left, and we were going to do a short share out from the groups, but I think we're probably a bit tight on time for that. But I'm just left with that feeling, of course, that death, loss, endings are an inevitable part of life, in small ways and in big ways, and in everyday experiences, and obviously in world changing, shattering loss, unexpected loss, and it can be all of those things. And I was just saying to my group that for me, I think one of the real powers of the huddle that we shared together was what we could learn from these small things, like my dear friend Ali's beautiful ritual for her credit card, which involved incense and chanting and all sorts of things. And what we could learn from those experiences to help resource us and make ourselves resilient and able to be in conversation with the much bigger losses that we face, personally, collectively, in our organizations. And so we would love to continue this conversation with anyone who feels like they'd like to be part of that. I think the honest answer is we don't know what that looks like right now. So there's sort of like no particular shape of a commitment, but if that feels interesting and you might like to be in touch with us, maybe you can put your email address in the chat and we'll do some follow-up and see what emerges from what already is a fascinating group of people doing lots of different work. And with that, I wonder, Ali, if you have anything last words you'd like to say, and if not, we can hand back to Hannah.
Thank you, Stella. No, we just had a very lovely reflection in the group around the heaviness of the language of death, and the way that really we're talking about metamorphosis and we just forget about that. That's what this is. It's all part of a bigger cycle, which just feels like an energizing and maybe quite a galvanizing way to close. But absolutely delighted that so many of you were able to join us for what we know is also a relatively challenging and sometimes uncomfortable way to spend a bit of time practicing things that feel quite out of our usual zones. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you also for all of your interest and comments. We're really curious about all kinds of reflections, not just positive ones. So do share with us, and we'll hand back to you, Hannah, now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you everyone for your sort of wholehearted stepping in to this exploration.